It is great to be joined today by Reinhard Fellman, who is the CEO of Review Network. This is a space that my audience certainly knows quite a bit about Reinhard, and I'm sort of personally interested in. Talk to us first about sort of the problem you've identified in the online review world.
Hey David, thanks for the nice introduction. And yeah, let's jump right into the topic. So online reviews actually matter to everyone. I experience it like very often myself, like by like going traveling or like looking up like the right product, that it's very difficult finding like good reviews. And how can you actually differentiate between like fake reviews and true reviews? And so we came up with this idea of review network. We said like, let's put online reviews on blockchain. So what benefit does it have? So when you publish a review, it will be validated by our community and you get rewarded for writing a review. That means like you have an incentive of like being honest and of putting like some time and effort into writing this review because you will not share your information or your experience for free anymore. So another problem we actually tackle is like demographic filtering. I'm a passionate diver, and for me it's like very difficult like finding and cutting through the noise like of all like these kind of like tons of reviews about dive schools. So when I travel like to Asia and want to find a really good dive school, I read like tons of reviews written by people I don't know who they are. What is their level of experience? So applying demographic filtering helps me finding the reviews that are very similar to my peer. So I'm an experienced diver with like around 50 dives in the last 3 years. I'm a dive master and I have like a certain level of experience. So I only want to read validated and true reviews from people with a similar level of experience. Because there's a huge difference if you look to like if you go diving for the first time or if you have like a ton of experience. You can write a much more qualified and better review. And having the incentive of like sharing my experience and sharing my data in return for a financial reward, that makes Review Network unique.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple of those pieces. I mean, there are certainly more people who go out to restaurants than the number who are divers. So maybe we'll use like the
Definitely.
restaurant example as one. A few different issues that exist. Number one, you don't know whether people associated with the restaurant have left reviews, which of course, if someone is associated with the restaurant, you would want to know that. Number two, you also don't know whether negative reviews are real. There are people who, for a number of different reasons, would leave negative reviews. There's self-selection bias. If you have a negative experience, you're much more likely to leave a review at all than if you don't. And then, of course, is the question of whether people are actually real people who are leaving the review. So let's take one of those issues at a time. How do you ensure with Review Network that the people leaving the reviews are real and you know who they are?
Okay. First, you set up your account and you verify this account by like uploading some personal information. So all this personal information will be encrypted and will only be stored on your device, like your mobile phone. It will be not stored like with us, so we do not have access, direct access to your data. So you're always in control of your data. So you verify yourself that you're a real person. That is like the first step. The second step is like when you go to a restaurant, and let's assume you really like the restaurant and you want to leave a good review. It's not like immediately that it gets published. You write the review, you write what you really liked about it, and then it goes like to our validation system. And our validation system are community members who evaluate if this review is a true review or not, if it's a valid review or not. So what we might ask you, for example, take a quick picture of the dish you have had, or take a picture of something in the restaurant to really see that you have been there and you had this experience. Share your experience, but then also when you share it, get rewarded for it. So of course we also have like the second issue you addressed, like negative reviews. And why is that so important? When your rating goes down on platform like Yelp or TripAdvisor or some other review sites, it has some real economic impact. So there are people out there that get hired by writing negative reviews. So we overcome this issue by a staking system. How does that work? On the one hand, you can earn tokens by filling out surveys and by writing reviews. So you earn tokens. But on the other hand, when you want to write a review, you stake some tokens. It's kind of like a security. My review is real. It's like kind of like staking money behind your your statement. So do you really want to risk your money? Do you want to lose it by writing a fake review? Most people won't.
That's
So that's
fascinating.
like
And what
one
about on the business
simple way.
side? Does the business have any opportunity? Some platforms provide an opportunity for the business to come in and say, hey, this review is not accurate, or we want to respond to a review. What is the infrastructure that exists for that?
For sure, like businesses have the opportunity to respond to reviews. And we will validate. I mean, it has to pass like in total like 7 validation steps. So it's like not just like one random validator who says like this review is good or bad. When there is a, let's say, an argument between the restaurant and the person who visited the restaurant, then we will have like someone in the middle who try to judge about the situation, and then we only publish something which is actually the truth. Because like maybe people get like really disappointed about some, I don't know, like by something in the restaurant which is even not related to the restaurant. Let's say a baby crying like next like to the table next where you sit to, or by some other circumstances. So very often when people write reviews, they're either super happy or they're really unsatisfied. But often this being not satisfied with something is not linked to the actual service or product. So let me go back, for example, to this example with the dive school. Very often people evaluate not just the dive school, they evaluate also the accommodation, like the activities surrounded by the dive school, and not the actual diving experience. So it's kind of like a biased review, and we want to cut this out. We want to get like closer to the truth, and of course help people selecting reviews that only really matter to them. Let's assume like by accident you end up in a restaurant that's way too expensive for your budget. Then you will leave this restaurant with a feeling it's not a comfortable feeling. And you will be like really, really picky with the food, and you will be overcritical. So how can you avoid this like at the first place? By finding restaurants using our platform that are close to your demographics, you know, like you're from Central Europe, for example, let's say from Germany, you have a certain income to spend. Your average restaurant bill is like, let's say 75 euros or 100 euros. So we will avoid this kind of like negative effect by the pre-selection already.
Have you considered whether this would be a platform that is useful within the video game industry? And the reason I ask that is that reviews of video games have become hugely controversial because of the alleged or perceived biases of some of the reviewers. Did the reviewer get a free game, for example? Does the reviewer know the developer? And we could apply that to a lot of these other areas as well. But is that something you're considering?
That is a really interesting question. I have not heard it before. So I have to admit that the last video game I have played was like 1998, and that was a FIFA football game.
Well, that's fair.
So
I mean,
you
maybe
definitely
maybe
talk
not
to the
video
wrong
games specifically,
person.
but the idea of disclosure of conflict of interest in reviewing.
Yes, I mean, in general, the U network will take this out because, like, here again, there is like this kind of like bias scenario. When you're a developer, when you're related to the company, of course, then we tend towards like writing a positive review or like reviewing this product or service much, much better than it actually is. So we will take this into consideration that people say like, are you linked to this company? Are you working for this company? Have you worked for this company in the past? And all this information you share, the good thing is like you don't share it for free. I mean, you will get rewarded for it. And it's like one of the main benefits.
What about when it comes to the token element of it? You talked about there's a sort of compensation or reward system in place, but can you talk a little bit about what function the token serves and the different ways in which it works on the platform?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have like two businesses. The first one is online reviews. So you earn tokens by publishing reviews and by sharing private information. Private information could be like your age, your income class, your race, and other demographics. That already helps other people taking better decisions, and these other people might want to reward you in return. So for example, when I get like a really good quality review about a dive school, I'm more than happy to send this other person voluntarily some tokens by saying thank you for helping me taking a better decision, a faster decision. On the other hand, people can also earn tokens by filling out like short surveys. So they get a notification on their phone. There's a survey that takes like 5 minutes, 10 questions, and it's about sunglasses. So people fill it out, they submit the survey, it goes through the validation system, and then you get the tokens. And what can you do again with the tokens? You can, on the one hand, like you can use them for finding the right information, but ideally where we want to take it to, that you can use these tokens later on to purchase like services and goods as well.
And what is the incentive or the plan for getting businesses involved with Review Network? In other words, if you're a business and the reviews are generally good, you would be more likely to work with Review Network. But if the reviews are generally good, you probably don't really need to work with Review Network. You're probably sort of doing okay already. On the other hand, if the reviews aren't so good, what would be the incentive to want to work with you also? So I think it would be interesting to hear about that.
It's basically when you have already good reviews, you don't have anything to fear. So why not let like your reviews be validated and add a certain level or an additional layer of trust? So the people know, okay, these reviews were not like fake reviews. In addition, one incentive working with us would be the demographic filtering system, what I used as an example before, because like when you look at TripAdvisor, you don't have that, for example, this demographic filtering system or Yelp.
What's the
And
what would be the differentiating factor in terms of functionality? I mean, is the idea that it's similar to some of those that you mentioned, but on the blockchain? Is it like a Yelp on the blockchain or TripAdvisor, or is there a functional difference?
it's very similar. I would say there's an overlapping of around like 60 to 70%. You can think about like us like Yelp on blockchain, in addition with like private data control and protection, plus then the financial reward for sharing the data. And of course, we will go into more detail with like demographic filtering and certain validation systems. On the company side, there's also an incentive when you, for example, have like negative reviews to work with us, because we can figure out why do you have negative reviews. Let's assume you're a restaurant and you're based here in Barcelona, and you have really good reviews from local people, but you have bad reviews from international people. So maybe it comes down like to a very simple factor, the language. So when we can actually filter the reviews and then like we can approach the company and say like, like most of the reviews are actually like from people from Central Europe. They might have a problem with the language. That's what they're expressed on the review site. We can aggregate like the information. And then we would like give recommendations to them and say like, why do you not print the menu in German or in French or any other languages or any other language? Because like we know the information of like who is visiting the restaurant. So we can do some certain, again, like demographic filtering and say like, okay, your restaurant is like throughout the year, like 50% of your guests are from Spain. But you also have like 30% guests like from France and 20% from Germany. Maybe you want to change like one or two things, like maybe over the summer having a rater who speaks German, French, in order to address like the problems and the negative reviews their business is having. Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. We've been speaking with Reinhard Feldman, who is the CEO of Review Network. You can find out more about both the platform and the ICO at review.network. Reinhard, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you very much, David.